Welcome back to MindVerse, everyone. Hope you have been doing good so far. Teuta, your host here, ready to kick off another episode. Our journey towards being organized is getting even more interesting. So far, we have uncovered a lot of cool techniques. We've learned some great facts about being organized, and just in the last episode, we spoke about great routines for your mornings. If you want to remember some of the tips, feel free to listen to them again. As always, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Today, we're going to explore another part of the day, our nights. We will work on establishing some great routines that will help you in your sleep, which in return will automatically help for a better day ahead. You might think this isn't necessary and it's an additional thing to do, but this is exactly the opposite of that. When you have a night routine, you set yourself up for success. And think of this as not something you have to do. It's something that you're already doing, but making it better. Now, let's dive in and see why night routines are important and what can you do to make them better. Get cozy. This will be interesting. Night routines don't sound as familiar as the morning routines, and it's okay. A lot of people want to focus on how they start the day, but little do we know that the way we close the day affects how we will start the next day. I recently read that CDC discovered that 1 in 3 adults in the United States get less sleep than they should. That can reflect negatively on people, and unfortunately it can cause health issues too, like heart diseases, obesity, depression, and others. Here we can see the importance of having a good night routine. When you prepare yourself mentally for a good night's sleep and also prepare for the next day, you're already one step ahead. It's not an easy task, of course, especially if you're binging a show that just caught your eyes on Netflix or you got distracted by your Instagram feed. But when you keep practicing it, it will for sure get better each time, and the new healthy habits will be your go-to points. If you remember the last episode, we did a categorization of the morning routines based on the days that we're having. We can apply the same logic here too. For example, have a night routine for workdays, night routines for days off, and vacations. Let's start with the first one, a good night routine for your workdays. Our workdays tend to be the defining points on how our days are going to be and how it will end. A very bad client call will worsen the mood and it will affect us for the whole day, even our sleep sometimes. A workplace conflict can cause distress and that will change our mood, of course. But when you make a night routine, make sure that you set a clear boundary there. Your work ends at the particular time, and it should be the end of it. I know that so many people work remotely and that might make it harder, as there isn't an office that you're leaving behind. But yet again, you're the one that is setting those boundaries. Make sure to close down everything and just focus on your rest. There are different activities that you can do before going to bed. I personally prefer to keep it simple. An hour before I go to bed, I decide to brush my teeth. I have noticed that if I do it immediately before going to bed, it causes me issues falling asleep. That's why I choose to brush my teeth earlier and of course don't eat anything so I can sleep better. Right before I do so, I wash all the dishes that have been collecting after lunch so I don't have a huge pile waiting for me the next day. I prefer to choose my clothes and have them ready for the next day. I don't like going over the wardrobe and getting anxious because I can't choose anything. It happened once and I completely lost it. When I was working from the office, I used to have a weekly choice of clothes. I was worried about myself, but then I watched Beckham, so now I'm feeling much better. Before going to sleep, I turn off my Wi-Fi and leave my phone on the side. I recently started doing it, and it is a huge help. The content that we scroll through can be so distracting, and while our brain will need rest, we are actually causing it to overwork. I know it might sound like an impossible task to do, but you have to do it if you want to have a quality sleep. I still sometimes touch the phone as a reflex, and then I leave it before turning it on. If I can do it, you can do it too. And when I go to bed, I try to calm my mind so it doesn't affect my sleep. I have this nice practice from Headspace. I start counting and focusing on a number until I fall asleep. The coach there has such a nice advice. If you notice your mind wandering, it's okay. Don't force yourself to, again, not to think of anything, but instead just calmly get your attention back to one point. That is something very great, especially for a person like me and the mind that I have. I get distracted very easily, and my mind keeps wandering and spewing ideas or scenarios. That's why I tend to go to this advice very often and keep practicing it. Now, these are some things that can be done during the night. I can recommend other things like journal to relieve the stress. This was part of the morning routine, as you might remember. Do some meditation or even yoga. I use the app Yoga for Weight Loss, and it has some nice 10 minutes before bed stretches. Put some calming music and set the mood for sleep. There's an interesting fact from Healthline which says that you can also have sex before going to sleep. In a study, they found that over 60% of the 282 adults who replied to the survey said that their sleep improved. And lastly, set one time for the sleep. Changing the time you go to bed will completely disorient you. Make sure that when you choose a routine, to stick to it. It's important that you don't change it the minute it becomes difficult. Then you will have to start over again. Now let's go to the second part. A good night routine for days off. What I mean by this is the night routines for days like Saturday and Sunday. I try to keep the same exact routine even though I might not work the next day. It is useful to stick to the same habit. If I decide to go out, then I try to stay until I can feel that my body will start feeling tired. Listen to your body. If it says it's time to go, it is time to go. I used to stay very late, and now when I look back, I am shocked as to how I was able to do that. Now, if anyone asks me if I'm in the mood to go out, I reply with the memes that I'm sure we're all familiar with. Try to keep the same routine, even if for a day your time of sleep changes. The same applies for vacation days too. One thing before I forget, make sure your sleeping area is also comfortable for you. When you see your bed and you are in full comfort, it should make you go to sleep fast. And if you can at that moment, make sure to not force yourself. Instead, get up and do a mini activity, which can bring you back to sleep. We made it to the finish line today. I hope I didn't make you go to sleep. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and hopefully you found these tips and tricks useful. Start with a small routine and keep holding on to it. It's up to you to decide which one you want to use. Experiment with different practices, rituals, and you will realize which one will be for you. Very excited to hear how did it go for you. One thing I want to add is that while you implement your organized night routine, don't forget to be present and fully engaged in each activity. Use this time to unwind, to reflect, and to connect with yourself and your loved ones. Let go of the day stressors and allow yourself to enter a state of calmness. In the next episode, we'll make sure to continue the journey of being organized. This will mark our 6th episode. We have come a long way. Now, about the topic of the next episode. It's about the top 10 useful apps that you can use to stay organized. I have given hints of which apps I use, but I will go more thoroughly as to why I use them. I will also do a research and share with you the ones that I have always wanted to use but never gotten a chance to. Stay with MindVerse. Feel free to share this podcast with friends, family, and anyone else in need of a little organizational inspiration. Remember, an organized life is a life filled with limitless possibilities. Until next time, stay organized, stay focused, and embrace the beauty of order.